resistance training, which is really a big part of the exercise scientist skill set. So what we're going to do today is we'll talk about what resistance training is, and then we'll talk about what is coaching, and then ultimately blend those two together to form coaching for resistance training. We'll talk about the purpose of resistance training and how to coach someone through resistance training exercises. Later on in the semester, we'll talk about coaching the holistic program. However, today it's more so focused on coaching individual exercises and providing a framework or a model for coaching these exercises. So what are some methods that you can use in order to provide a structured coaching process that facilitates the different stages of learning that your clients or your athletes are at. So what is resistance training? When you think of the term, you probably think of bars with weights sort of attached on the end. You probably think about dumbbells and barbells or machines. However, resistance training can be the use of any resistance that's designed to oppose a muscle or a movement. And so that incorporates the use of bands, it incorporates the use of body weight as well. It can incorporate the use of chains attached to the end of bars. It can incorporate flywheels. So there's a myriad of different things that you can use in order to create a resistance to oppose a muscle or a movement. And the reason why we do that is often to increase our muscle size, muscular endurance, our ability to produce force, or develop power and speed. And so muscle size is definitely probably the most common, I would say. So muscle size or developing muscular hypertrophy is an important attribute for a lot of different athletic endeavors. It's also really important for the general population. And muscle size is most often associated with your ability to produce force. So the bigger the muscle, high correlation between your ability to produce force. And so typically what we try to do is we try to develop muscle size that underpins your ability to produce force, and then we perform some sort of specific strength training using particular loads and rest periods and movement tempos or intent in order to produce the neuromuscular adaptations that underpin the applications of strength. Muscular endurance is a little bit different. Muscular endurance is the ability to resist fatigue and perform repeated muscular contractions in the absence of fatigue. And so if you think about events that last for 1 to 2 minutes, this is sort of the events where you build up lactic acid, and your legs start to get tired or sore as a result. Developing muscular endurance really improves your ability to buffer all of the different things that effectively make you tired. And power and speed, they are probably more associated with athletic performance. However, power and speed is definitely important as we age and for the rest of the population as well. And this is why some falls prevention programs, or the majority of them anyway, they actually incorporate a fair bit of power type movements. And the reason why they do that is to try to prevent falls, to try to maintain the neuromuscular properties, your brain's connection to your muscles, in order to produce force quickly. So this can, the theory is that it reduces the likelihood of you falling over when you're older. And so, like I said before, it's they're often sort of thought of in the form of weights on a bar, like a free weight kind of scenario, or a pin-loaded machine, and they work through a particular range of motion. Now, this is a relatively crass definition, However, this is probably what people most associate resistance training with. However, as we discussed before, there's a broad range of resistance training applications that you can use to elicit improvements in all of these different factors. Okay, so what's coaching? Well, it's a myriad of different things, and it's quite a broad. It is quite a broad skill set and diverse skill set. So you can see on the right-hand side here, this is Tracy Menzies, and she was for a large period of time was Ian Thorpe's swimming coach, and her skill set is incredibly diverse. She can prescribe swimming training. She understands the biomechanics associated with high-performance swimming. She understands her athletes, very good with sports psychology. She understands how to break down skills and communicate skills, to people who are ultimately the best swimmers in the world. So coaching is a really, really broad skill set. And Tracy was a swimmer herself early on, and took a long time to develop all of the holistic skills. And so as someone who's incredibly experienced, she can really draw on all of her different experiences in order to deliver the best program that she can for her athletes. So I looked at some sort of key words out of what is coaching quotes for you guys, and some of the sort of key things that came out was about creating or being a facilitator. And so what that means is creating an environment for your clients or your athletes to learn effectively on their own. And so I've had a lot of coaches sort of describe to me, over my sort of professional career, and that you really want to be able to develop them to a point where they can teach themselves, and you end up becoming redundant, so to speak. So if you consider that in the context of resistance training, you really want to develop your client or your athlete into someone who's got the capacity to learn different skills, understand the context of safety, be able to make adjustments if they feel like it's necessary. So they really turn into a coach themselves. A coach is also someone who's experienced, and they support someone through the learning process and use their experience to support that learning process. And so part of being an experienced person is you guys spending a lot of time working on this sort of stuff. So if you are going to coach someone how to do resistance training, you really want to have a lot of experience in, number one, doing it yourself. That's always a positive. But also, number two, you want to make sure that you're practicing your ability to coach, identify technique errors, identify issues with safety or changes in mechanics, in order to support the optimal learning environment for that person. So coaching is also understanding the methods of training, instructing, and even counselling to a degree. That's a really broad term, counselling, but so you need to have a level of understanding of exercise prescription. That's really a given. But then what you want to do is you want to be able to instruct that to the individual who have their individual learning characteristics, and then counsel them through the ups and downs of a typical training journey that has periods of you get tired sometimes, or things happen external to the training environment that affects your ability to train. There are really good times, so sharing in them with your clients and your athletes. So that really is, counselling is the holistic management of your client or your athlete. And we kind of touched on this in the first point, is that it really enables future self-directed learning and development. And so with someone like Ian Thorpe, Tracy's an absolutely incredible coach. He teaches Ian to be able to identify things within his own performance that he feels like he should develop. And then that becomes a collaborative process between the coach and the athlete, where the athlete can drive so many of the good decisions in regards to training.